Have you ever had a moment where something just didn't sit right? Maybe someone's words didn't match their actions, or a small look between people gave you the sense that something else was going on behind the scenes. You shook it off, told yourself you were just being paranoid. But what if you weren't? Welcome back to Behind Your Mind, the space where we explore the invisible patterns behind human behavior. I'm glad you're here, because today we're talking about a misunderstood emotion, paranoia. Or more specifically, when what we call paranoia is actually something else entirely. Let's start by acknowledging something important. Paranoia is a heavy word. It carries stigma, judgment, and often shame. When we hear the word, we tend to think of someone detached from reality, seeing conspiracies where there are none. A person whispering about secret plots, trusting no one, imagining they're being watched. And yes, in clinical terms, paranoia can be a symptom of a serious psychiatric condition. But outside the clinical setting, the label paranoid is thrown around much more casually, often to invalidate or dismiss someone's intuition or discomfort. You question someone's motive? You must be paranoid. You sense something off in a conversation? You're overthinking it. You don't trust the situation? Relax, it's all in your head. Sound familiar? Here's where it gets more complex. What if your so-called paranoia is actually a form of pattern recognition? Let's say you grew up in an unpredictable home, maybe a narcissistic parent, or someone with volatile moods. As a child, you became highly attuned to tone shifts, microexpressions, and subtle changes in behavior because your safety depended on it. That's not mental illness. That's survival. Fast forward to adulthood. Someone walks into the room, and something in their energy changes. No one else notices, but you do. You feel it in your chest. You can't explain it, but something's off. You get this creeping discomfort, and then you hear that internal voice. Don't be paranoid. But what if your nervous system is trying to warn you based on real, familiar signals? What if it's not paranoia, but a learned sensitivity? Let's talk about a woman we'll call Maya. Maya had a history of emotionally abusive relationships. She often ignored red flags in the past because she didn't trust her own perception. One day, early in a new relationship, her partner suddenly grew distant for a few days without explanation, and when Maya gently asked about it, he laughed and said, "You're just being paranoid." But something inside her said no. This isn't paranoia. This is the same pattern I've seen before. She didn't have proof. She just had a feeling. And instead of overriding it like she used to, she stepped back and paid attention. What followed was a slow unraveling. Gaslighting, manipulative behavior, and subtle emotional control. That gut feeling? It was right. It wasn't paranoia. It was memory, pattern, intelligence. We need to talk about gender for a moment. Historically, women's emotional responses have often been minimized, pathologized, or ridiculed. The label paranoid has long been used to undermine women's experiences, especially when they speak up about mistreatment, infidelity, workplace toxicity, or even just gut discomfort. How many women have been told they're paranoid, only to later uncover the betrayal or injustice they sensed from the start? And how many people, regardless of gender, have been taught to gaslight themselves, to doubt their reality because someone else told them they were just being crazy, emotional, or too sensitive? Paranoia in this context isn't about delusion. It's about perception that others aren't ready to validate. Now, let's be fair. There is a difference between healthy vigilance and harmful suspicion. We all carry biases from past experiences. If you've been betrayed before, your mind might jump to conclusions. If you've lived in chaos, your brain may expect it again. That's why self-awareness is key. Ask yourself, is this feeling rooted in a pattern I've seen before? Do I have other evidence, or just a flash of fear? Am I projecting an old wound onto a new situation? The goal isn't to distrust yourself or blindly trust others. It's to become a better interpreter of your inner signals. You're not here to silence your intuition. You're here to refine it. One of the most dangerous dynamics in toxic relationships is how easily someone can weaponize the idea of paranoia to control you. Let's say you notice inconsistencies in a partner's stories. You gently ask a question, and they respond with something like, "You're so paranoid. You always imagine things." They might even use the phrase with concern. "I'm worried about you. Your mind is always racing with suspicions." But underneath that false concern is a manipulative tactic to make you question your perception so they can continue their behavior unchecked. In this case, calling you paranoid is not about your mental health. It's about protecting their lies. There's a word in trauma psychology, hypervigilance. It means you're constantly scanning your environment for danger, often unconsciously. This state can look like anxiety, restlessness, or suspicion. And yes, it can be exhausting. But here's what most people don't understand. Hypervigilance is not a flaw. It's your body doing what it needed to do to survive, even if the danger is no longer present. Healing hypervigilance doesn't mean you become numb or naive. It means learning how to distinguish between real and perceived threats and giving your nervous system a new baseline of safety. So when someone calls you paranoid, maybe the more accurate phrase is,
I'm attuned.
"I'm still learning when to trust that attunement." Let me tell you something you might need to hear. You're not broken for noticing too much. You are not damaged because you're wary. And you are not paranoid because you've developed sensitivity to betrayal, deceit, or danger. You are the sum of what you've survived. Paranoia isn't always what we think it is. Sometimes, it's the buried wisdom of our past trying to keep us safe in the present. And sometimes, it's the very thing that helps us finally say no, to walk away, to see clearly what others tried to blur. What if we reclaimed the word paranoia? What if, instead of shame, we saw it as a signal, one that simply asks for our curiosity and care? Next time you feel that rush of doubt, that internal warning bell, pause. Don't dismiss it immediately. Ask where it comes from. Trace its roots. Hold it gently. Because maybe you're not paranoid. Maybe you're just picking up the patterns. And hey, if this episode helped you understand yourself or someone else just a little better, please consider subscribing, liking, or just sharing this with someone who might need it. Until next time, stay curious, stay compassionate, and remember, I'm right here with you, behind your mind.